Well, I think there is something very dangerous as an academic speaking to another academic about the promotion of in-group, out-group violence, because I think we know where that can lead. And you're right. I didn't quite use the phrase fake news. I didn't say we are going to have a race war. Obviously you want a provocative title, but I don't think I exaggerated to any significant degree there. I think that there is a narrative in the United States right now that I sometimes refer to as the continuing oppression narrative that is actually extremely dangerous for the country and extremely damaging to race relations.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Okay. I think that so first of all, obviously you're right. The media is generally sensationalistic.
Right.
The media, except for long form conversations like this one, perhaps, is an ad delivery vehicle. So the things that appear on Fox News or CNN are those things that sell Chevy Silverados and Viagra pills. There seems to be a set grouping of things that people are afraid of, excited by, and that will pay attention to. The risks of sex and sexuality and also of parenthood, the atavistic terror of being eaten by an animal, things bursting into flames, racial conflict, blacks and whites fighting in the street with sticks. We all know the 7 or 8 things the media talks about all the time. So sensationalism is real. I also do think the media in the United States, along with most of the discursive sector, leans left. I'm not a radical partisan. I'm center to center right myself, but this is just a fact. We've all seen the Pew 2004 data. 93% of mass media journalists test as liberals or left-leaning moderates. So I think that in the context of those Pew results, one of the things you see very often in the media is this narrative of extreme ethnic conflict. So Black Lives Matter openly says, this is in the platform of the movement for Black Lives, that police kill between thousands and tens of thousands of essentially innocent black people every year.
We know that's false.
Yeah, it's wildly
more like 250 or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. If they're innocent.
Some are innocent. Some are, there are a total of about 1,200 people killed by the police in a typical year. 250 will be black. The year I looked at, I'm not going to pretend this extends to every year. I don't know. But in 2015, the total number of unarmed, essentially innocent, black men killed by specifically white police officers was 17. And some of them were fighting the cops. So to say tens of thousands is a misread by 55 standard deviations, by orders of magnitude, not real.
Okay, but let me try this on you, because I've been thinking this for some time since the rise of Black Lives Matter, which is, okay, a cop kills a unarmed kid, or a cop kills a kid, kills somebody running away from them when maybe the cop didn't need to shoot. Let's say the cop happens to be white and the kid happens to be black. Now we've got a federal case. People are marching. Al Sharpton has flown in, and it's on TV. Now, you're from Chicago. I'm from Chicago. Not that long ago, maybe it was a couple of years ago, a Chicago police commander was murdered by an African-American criminal. The commander was across the street from City Hall. He got a call that someone was fleeing. He decided to try to answer it. He saw the guy go down the stairway. He follows the guy down the stairway. The guy gets a drop on him and shoots him dead. The guy's black. The cop is white. Nowhere did I read, and I wouldn't have wanted to read it, and I shouldn't have read, that black criminal murders white cop at the bottom of a stairwell. I didn't read that. The race of the people was not injected into the reporting of that crime. And yet, if instead the cop had gotten his gun out in time and shot the criminal, the whole story would have been white cop shoots black criminal, and people would have been marching on North Michigan Avenue complaining about this thing. Now, here's my point. My point is it really in the interest of African Americans to racialize crime, police interactions, and punishment in the country? When you look at the statistics of how many of the offenders are African American, are you sure you could control the use of race in the discussion of crime and punishment in America if you're a black advocate, such that it only gets used when it benefits you, and you're going to point a finger and call a racist anybody who uses it in the other direction? You can't control that. And even if you can prevent newspapers from running headlines that say black criminal kills white cop, you can't prevent people from thinking that around their dinner tables when they're talking about the day's news. This could be actually a disaster for black people. The framing of the discussion of police-criminal interactions in explicitly racial terms could turn out to be an absolute political disaster for black people. Do you agree with that?
I agree with a large part of it. I will say first, in fact, coming from a region of the country here in Kentucky that produces a lot of the whites that go to prison in the USA, I will say one of the things that might balance that out is that with the exception of certain crimes like robbery, there are also a very large number of white and Hispanic criminals. So I essentially agree with you, but there are 2 points I would make here. First of all, one part of the police shooting debate is simply the fact that the majority of the people, 78% majority of the people shot by law enforcement officers in the United States are Caucasian. So there's no shortage of broke Hispanic, Italian American, Irish American, Russian individuals in Chicago that could also engage in a hostile encounter with the police. And those numbers are much higher in Kentucky or West Virginia. So I think the first thing that many people are aware of before they become aware of the fact that a disproportionate number of criminals, as well as police shooting victims, are African American, is the first level of kind of red pilling about this debate is simply the fact that the majority of the people shot by the cops happen to be white or Hispanic, and this is just ignored. I think in terms of the point you're actually raising, though, if people begin to look at demographic patterns by race, will that be a good thing for African Americans? The answer very often is no. I think given the fact that national desegregation occurred in 1954, I have the minority, but logically defensible viewpoint that blacks are actually doing fairly well in the USA. I think that the civil rights vision of how to get ahead is probably no longer what African Americans need. I think a focus on fatherhood, SAT scores, so on, would do a great deal more for the black community than marching around with signs. But I don't think black people overall are doing badly. However, you're absolutely right that if you say, well, African Americans make up 13.2% of the population, but 23.5% of those shot by cops, a response from someone on the right could easily be, well, you also make up 48% of the murderers. Yeah, you don't necessarily want to racialize that. I think you're seeing this now with the alt-right, by the way. I have no sympathy for the alt-right, but the alt-right is essentially identity politics for broke white men. College students who feel buried by debt, working class kids in states like Kansas that we've forgotten about, smart, young hacker boys on the internet. The alt-right is a bunch of white guys saying, why can't we say for white people the things that many African-American leaders on the hard left, like Al Sharpton, say for black people? So if you say 27% of those shot by the cops are black, we will say, well, 48% of the murderers are black. Yes, I do think that's a risk. I, in general, dislike racial identity politics in large conglomerate nations. I think in political science, we've seen over and over where that can lead, with countries like Russia and Yugoslavia falling apart into a collection of states with names like the Republic of You and Me, and I'm not sure about me. So I'd rather not see it in America. And yeah, you do have a point there.